I call this Town of Adams Board of Selectmen meeting to order Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. First item on the agenda, could everyone please stand and join the board in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to make an announcement that this meeting is being recorded and televised live on Northern Berkshire Community Television Channel 1303. If anyone in the audience who would like to record this meeting, please inform the chair, and we have iBerkshires. Anyone else? Okay. All right, next we have approval of minutes for August 21st, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And then part of that motion, you to agree to waive the reading of the minutes.
Yes, I'd like to waive the reading of the minutes.
Okay. Motion by Ann, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Joe. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous decision. Next is public comment. Anyone who would like to address the board with anything on this evening's agenda, please approach, state your name, address.
Yes.
Thank
My
you.
name's Steve Marco, that's Marco with a K. I live at 650 Wells Road in the town of Cheshire. This is the fourth time that I've come in here to talk to you. I was just looking for confirmation from the town that East Mountain Road is a public way. Back in May, my law firm sent you a letter. I assume the last time I was here 2 weeks ago, nobody had seen that letter since May. And I assume that you're all on top of this now and have seen it. And probably the interesting thing that your town administrator made a comment at the end of that discussion last 2 weeks ago was that the legal parties were going to handle this situation. And nothing's happened, all right? So here we are. I've been coming in here for a year, all right?
Okay.
And nothing's happened. And another 2 weeks go by,
A point
and
of order.
nothing's happened.
Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Marco has indicated that he has legal representation and would like legal representation to contact his legal representation. So I think at this point, we shouldn't hear any more of this matter in this manner, and it should actually go to the lawyers.
I would love that.
I think that's where we are we?
That's what it should be.
Here's the question. Has anybody contacted the town council and had him contact to tell him to contact our lawyer? Are you waiting for me?
They've been contacted.
Yeah.
They've been aware of it. And there was a decision issued by Attorney St. John that your attorney disagrees with. That was then sent over to our new town council. Your issue arose during new council transition.
When did that happen?
June. Council has to look at it again.
Once again, point of order, Mr. Marco has indicated that he has legal representation and would like to hear from our legal representation, so I would ask that we no longer comment on this issue in this manner.
Okay, thank you. It's in legal
All
counsel's
right,
hands.
I assume you're right on top of this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the board? Sure, come on up. Please state your name and your address, please.
Kathy Foster, I live in Adams, Forest Street. I've got a couple of things. The notice that's on the town's website for the school budget meeting, the notice is not correct. The notice got blended in with another notice. On other dates when there are more than one events for that date, they each have a bullet. So what this says is voter registration deadline for September 30th, 2024 district-wide budget meeting.
Okay, well, take a look at that. I
That's-
haven't seen it.
It's very hard to understand.
Okay.
That's one thing, and that should be done quickly because the meeting's coming up. Had a couple of other things. Are we gonna have an opportunity to, I know there's a presentation for the solar carports. Will the public have an opportunity to ask questions or be involved at that time?
You can ask questions during the after the board's done.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, good. And it would be pointless to ask anything now because it'll probably be answered. The January 3rd executive session minutes. I know that the Attorney General said that they want notice within 30 days that you've published them, but I also know that other people have asked for them. And
Right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
there's 10 days.
So I reviewed them this evening, and I did sign them, so they'll be in the
But
process.
even in draft form, they have to be given.
Yeah, I've signed it, and it's going to be distributed.
So can you say when they'll be
I'm
posted?
not sure, it shouldn't be long, but I signed it this evening.
Okay. And the development agreement with Shared Estates, it says it was signed on June 17th. Is that correct? Because you went into executive session on June 18th.
I don't have the exact dates.
Okay, so how will I get an answer to that?
I'm not sure if reviewing the minutes or the videotape would help. I'm not sure with exact dates this evening.
Well, I don't know when it was signed, so reviewing minutes won't help me.
Okay.
Was it signed at the executive session?
I'm not sure at this point. I'm not aware. I don't have that information in front of me.
So can someone tell me at some point, or can you tell me how I can find out at some point?
If you send an email.
You'll send me an email?
No, if you could send me an email.
Okay,
They'll have everything that you're requesting.
okay, that's all I have, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to address the board? All right, next, new business. A, presentation from Select Energy, design and location for solar carports at the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center, 135 Gould Road, Adams. Jay, you can start this off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Andreas, why don't you come on up? Mike, why don't you come on up? This is a piece to the Greylock Glen project that is separate really from the building construction itself. Solar had always been in the sphere of the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center, and there's been some conversation about it. The board was invited up to the Glen property as individuals or less than a quorum with Andreas and Executive Director Wynn. You were able to walk around the site, see it, have an initial presentation. Now tonight is the formal presentation to the entire board and for the public to see exactly what may be built up there for a solar installation. We're attempting to do this without any investment essentially from the town. That is the goal of this. We're looking for an organization that can front the capital cost to install the solar. It's also a cost-benefit analysis. Is it really worthy to install solar at the outdoor center? But as everything that we've done with the outdoor center has been exciting. So I think with solar, and Andreas, now I'll let Mike introduce our guest tonight, but really it's kind of a conversation of the aesthetics, the location, what's the generation capacity of the panels, what's going to be the usage of the building. So it's really exciting to be at this point where we can have this conversation about it. The building is up, we've got power to it, so now we're polishing up the building. We're deciding what more functions do we want up there, what things that we want up there. I'm going to move to Breeze left, so if the board wants to move over this way to be able to see the full presentation. And while they do that, I'll turn it over to Executive Director Wynn so that he can introduce it a little bit further.
Joe, you want to take Jay's seat?
Thank you, Mr. Green. So, as the board and the public is aware, one of the first duties I had to do when I came on as the executive director of the Greylock Glen was come before you to request funding for geotechnical testing to be performed to support the installation of the solar carports, the solar array. And, I'm sorry, this is Andreas Schmidt. He's our representative from Select Energy, who is the preferred solar provider. When the results of the geotechnical came back, they were not positive. They came back with a high water table and sandy soil, which dramatically would have increased or will increase the cost of the installation. And that would have caused the savings to the town to be decreased significantly as the cost of the project went up. So Select, at our request, went back and did some additional designs using some different materials. And then they came back to us with 2 potential alternative designs, which I'll let Andreas present. But by the time that happened, we had been at this long enough that we thought we needed to get it back in front of you and in front of the public to see the 2 design plans before any decision was made.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so we had started this process, coming up on 2 years ago. We signed originally a letter of intent under the Power Options provision. Power Options is an organization that was a state entity back in 1998 when power markets deregulated. Power Options was created to procure energy for state entities and municipalities. And Power Options and in 2008 became private, a not-for-profit, and still to this day serves municipalities, state entities, and nonprofits in Massachusetts in procuring power, gas, as well as solar energy. And per Massachusetts general laws, they're allowed to procure those services for their members by running RFPs, which satisfy public procurement requirements, so that you, as a Power Options member, do not have to go through your own procurement. So the RFP for this project has already been completed by Power Options. Negotiations for all documents associated with the project had been completed with Power Options attorneys. So we have documents ready to go. They're now in the hands of your council and ready for review upon approval of the project by the Select Board. The town is a Power Options member, and so ultimately can choose to move forward under the provisions of the letter of intent and per the agreement between Power Options and Select Energy as the winner of the solar RFP put out by Power Options a couple of years ago. Select has conducted all due diligence on the project. We've secured interconnection approval because an impact study was required by National Grid because there was no, as we call it, hosting capacity for solar on this utility line because of large solar farms that are already on the line. An impact study was anticipated. We had talked about that from the beginning. And the town actually paid for that impact study at a cost of $18,000. So National Grid was paid for that. The impact study was completed, and we now have interconnection approval from National Grid as a result of Select's engineering and interconnection applications being submitted at no cost to the town, and then subsequently the town paying for the follow-up impact study, which resulted in an interconnection approval. So we have approval for the project up to 100 kilowatts AC in system size. In terms of the panel capacity, things are a little flexible. So we could add a few more panels or take a few more panels out as long as that AC system size doesn't change. AC is the alternating current size that's related specifically to the inverters, the smart part of a solar system that changes the DC power coming from the panels to AC at the proper voltage to be used in the building. So that's really what the utility looks at. And as long as we keep that inverter configuration that they've approved, we have flexibility with our panel design. When we first approached this project, the architect wanted to see the panels placed in this area, all along this first row of parking on the left as you drive into the parking area. And it would have been a single-sided T canopy meaning just one side of all of the footings and poles that come out of the ground would have panels coming off of it, and just one row of parking would be covered, which requires a lot of footings. As Mike mentioned, when the geotechnical study that the town paid for was completed, it found a little bit of a surprising result, and that is a high water table and sandy soils, which make it difficult to put deep footings into the ground. These footings for solar parking canopies have to go 20 feet into the ground, even further sometimes, depending on soil conditions. When you have sandy soils or high water tables and you start drilling, the holes collapse, and so it gets expensive to put footings in. The alternative is to put shallow footings in, what we call spread footings, which require more digging, more concrete, and so footings get very expensive with these soil conditions. So the original letter of intent that was signed at an agreed 25 cents per kilowatt hour. The recent electric bill that was sent to me by Mike and Jay shows that on the G1 rate code with National Grid, the total kilowatt hour charges on the delivery side, meaning National Grid's charges to the town, are 13.248 cents per kilowatt hour. Adding to that, the Adams aggregate supply contract rate of 13.65 cents a kilowatt hour, the savings would be almost 27 cents a kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour the system produces. So there would be a net savings to the town if we could stick with the 25 cent per kilowatt hour PPA rate. So under the terms of a power purchase agreement, Select Energy, the company I represent, will build and operate and maintain and insure the system for 25 years. The town agrees to purchase the power at a fixed rate that does not change for that 25 years. We measure the kilowatt hour output of the system on a monthly basis, and we bill on the first of every month for the prior month's production values. And ultimately the town pays for that, and if the town is saving more than that 25 cents a kilowatt hour in utility costs, then it's a net benefit to the town. And we as a company take on all the operating costs, all the insurance costs, and at the end of 25 years, we remove the system at no cost to the town. Or a couple other options, the town could extend year to year at an mutually agreed upon new PPA rate for each year after the first 25-year term, or the town could elect to purchase the system at the fair market value at the end of 25 years. So those are the basic terms of the power purchase agreement. We pay for all costs, development costs, operations, maintenance costs, of course construction costs, including equipment, labor, permitting, so on, and insurance. And what we get back is the federal tax credit, which helps us pay for the system. We get back the incentives from the state that are paid by the kilowatt hour, and we get that per kilowatt hour PPA rate that the town would pay on a monthly basis. So in order to maintain the original 25 cent per kilowatt hour PPA rate, we essentially had to change our design configuration to reduce the number of footings relative to the amount of output that you would get from the system. The original design requested by the architect, with all those footings, with only a single-sided, as we call it, T-canopy, would have resulted in a PPA rate of 31 cents per kilowatt hour. So this new design over here has only 7 footings. It's a 2-sided T-canopy, so for the number of footings, you have a whole lot more panels installed and a lot more output. And when you have a PPA where we are getting paid by the kilowatt hour for both the incentives and the and the PPA rate, it makes it much more cost-effective. So instead of the 10 footings we would have had here for a 120 kilowatt system, we have 7 footings for a 148 kilowatt system. The original system design was meant to cover what the energy modeling from the outdoor center's electrical engineer anticipated as being 120,000 kilowatt hours a year of consumption. That did not factor in the new EV chargers that were installed over here. So when cars start coming and plugging in, you're going to have a lot higher consumption than 120,000 kilowatt hours a year. So we went with a slightly larger system at 148 kilowatts instead of 120. This system will produce just under around 180,000 kilowatt hours a year. And I can't guarantee what the outdoor center will consume on an annual basis, but with the EV charging factored in, I imagine it will be at least that. If in producing about 180,000 kilowatt hours a year and offsetting 100% of what might be 180,000 kilowatt hours a year of consumption, if you're consuming more than that, no problem. If you're consuming less than that, you would have an overage, and that overage can be sent to other town accounts. So there's a backstop there. There's sort of a safety there in being able to send out what are called alternative on-bill credits that National Grid can transfer from the outdoor center account to any other town account that you want to designate those credits to. So I think the message here is we have a good alternate design. It would be a two-sided T-canopy covering just these parking spaces and then overhanging the embankment and the drainage swale just opposite and over the guardrail from the parking spaces here. The high side of this canopy would be on this side so that cars parking under here have an unobstructed view of the outdoor center and the mountain behind it, which really is the intent of the architect's design. So when you're pulling into the parking area here and you're looking at the outdoor center kind of mimics the shape of the mountain, which is beautiful, and you don't want that view obstructed. We do have an alternate design, which would also be 25 cents a kilowatt hour and would involve 8 footings and would span the whole end of this parking area, both sides of the parking rows, and the drive lane. But that design would obstruct these parking spaces' view of the proposed, the outdoor center, not the proposed outdoor center, it's actually there now. I think everyone I've spoken with about this has agreed that this is the preferred alternate design rather than this, as we call it, long span canopy, which would have 2 rows of 4 footings on either side of the parking rows with a large canopy that goes over the entire parking area here.
On the third page.
Third page? Let's see.
Scroll down on the right part.
Yeah, gotcha. Sorry, I am getting over a cold and I'm a little spacey today and forgot my laptop, so Mike put these designs on his laptop. So this is, while we're here, this is actually oriented north-south properly, and you can see the orientation on a proper north-south orientation with this design showing the panels as they would be in this first design we're looking at. Do you want to go to that other design? So while Mike's looking for that, do you all have any other questions or comments? I've talked a lot here. Hopefully it made sense.
Andreas, can you speak a little bit, it's come up before about why there isn't solar on the roof, and why we're not talking about solar on the roof, and why we went to the carports. Can you revisit that? I know that we made that decision a while back, but it might be good to just revisit that.
Sure. The goal for the design center, the outdoor center design, was to be a net zero building. And Bill McClay, your architect, focused on the aesthetics of the building rather than how much solar could be fit on the roof. And I think he did a great job in that goal. And his idea was to put parking canopies up to make up for the difference in what could not be fit on the roof. The roof could fit, when we got our hands on the design and we started coming up with ideas for achieving net zero, meaning covering 100% of the outdoor center's energy consumption, well, electricity consumption with solar, we found that the roof could only take about 30 or 40 kilowatts. It would take 120 to cover all the needs of the outdoor center, not accounting for car charging. So we agreed with Bill McClay in that all of the solar should be put in the parking lot because it keeps the aesthetic of the building, doesn't put anything on the roof, no worries about, needing to expand or make changes to the building in the future and interrupting the solar or anything like that. And so we went with the original idea that he had for those single-sided T canopies all along that one side of parking. And that was his preferred aesthetic. With this design for a parking canopy, you're able to cover 100% of, I think, the original energy modeling for 120,000 kilowatt hours for the building use, plus the car charging. Here's that second design. And we're able to, with the first design, provide you with a design that doesn't obstruct views of the building, doesn't put solar on the building, but if in the future you find you need more power, you can add very cost-effectively some solar to the roof. The roof area that is there that is good for solar is very good for solar. It's a standing seam metal roof. We could clip onto the seams with no roof penetrations. The orientation of the panels would be generally south on the south-facing areas of those pitched standing seam metal roofs. We could fit a little bit of capacity on the flat roof, but not a huge amount. So there would be a future option to add some more solar if you wanted to on the roofs of the building. So that's kind of in reserve if I were to think of it, if you want to think of it that way. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
And I know that our board has gone through it before when we, made the decision to go down this path of having the geotherm study and so forth, but I thought it was good to revisit the conversation.
Sure.
So thank you for the explanation.
Sure. So yeah, this is the other design, which has 8 footings, but there's cost savings in other ways, so we can stick with the 25 cent per kilowatt hour PPA rate. It's a little smaller in system size, 145 kilowatts rather than 148. So you get a little bit less power, but I think the main issue here, as explained, is that these footings on this side will kind of obstruct the view of the building from all these parking spots here. And you're also going to have this kind of tunnel effect where you have to drive under the solar to get around the parking turnaround here. My recommended preference is this design here that we reviewed first. It has less footings, it won't obstruct the view of the building. Here you see a schematic of a single-sided T, or a two-sided T canopy. This high side would be facing the building, so you can see as you pull a car in here, this height being about 20 feet, you won't have the view of the mountain or the building obstructed at all. So definitely a nice option for you guys to get, I think, what will be 100% of the consumption of the building covered and achieve net zero. We've taken everything into account. It's kind of select energy risk in providing you with a 25-cent PPA rate that's fixed for 25 years. If we have higher maintenance costs, it's on us. If we have higher insurance costs, it's on us. If we've made a mistake in our modeling, it's on us. If we've miscalculated voltage drop or losses or production values on the system, it's on us. The town doesn't pay for any kilowatt hours that aren't delivered. So it's really a risk-free scenario for the town. Ultimately, it comes down to, I think, an aesthetic and an economic choice. Do you think 25 cents a kilowatt hour PPA rate is going to allow you to save enough money to make this worthwhile and achieve your net zero goal for the building? Aesthetically, is it going to work with what you're trying to achieve at the outdoor center? And I personally, I think it does. I think aesthetically it will be great. Systems on rooftops tend to get overlooked. People don't notice them as much, but this will be, some people like to call it solar bling. You know, you're gonna have a very easily visible demonstration of your commitment to the environment and to being net zero. When people pull in, they're gonna know there's solar. And a few of these parking spaces, which are further away from the building, are gonna be highly valued parking spaces because they're gonna be shaded and protected from snow in the winter and hail if there's a hailstorm. In order to save money on this design, and in order to save money on pretty much all of the canopies we install, and we're installing canopies all over the state right now. We just finished up multiple canopies for the Worcester Public Schools. We're starting construction this week on the Mass State Police Headquarters. We're under construction in the town of Williamsburg at their new public safety complex. We're under construction on a lot of solar canopies for public entities around the state because there's an extra incentive for public entities, and it makes parking canopies work. And if you don't have space on a roof to put solar, well, there's a lot of parking lots out there. And so we're covering a lot of parking lots, which is great. It's better than putting solar on valuable farmland in Massachusetts. So most of our canopies do not have what we call water management. It's a very expensive endeavor to put all these panels up on a canopy and then put a roof under them to keep everything perfectly dry underneath. And then, because you have a roof, you have to put in gutters and downspouts running into subgrade drainage, which raises the cost substantially on a project like this. So most of these systems do not have water management. That means that, you know, between the gaps in the panels, you have some water dripping. So in a rainstorm, people underneath the canopy are not going to be dry necessarily, unless you're standing exactly underneath a panel. But, you know, panels are quite large. They're 7.5 feet by 4.5 feet. So, you know, every 7.5 feet, you're going to have a drip line under the canopy. That doesn't change the sheet flow in the parking lot, so you don't have to worry about changing your drainage plan, which is great. You don't have to worry about stormwater management, and we don't have to worry about where to put a focused flow of water from a downspout. So that's not an issue.
I think it's a good time to pause. Christine, you had another question?
Can you, so I know we're on design 1 right now. Can you remind me of and you said this height was 20 feet? That's when it's tilted.
Yep,
And if we were to go to design 2, can you remind me what the height is?
yep, it would also be around 20 feet,
Okay.
and the high side would be over here, facing the building, but you would have the footings and the large support poles in the way.
Yeah, because my concern, and I am not a transportation expert by any means, but buses that would come through and have to use the turnaround, finding a tunnel-type system may be difficult to maneuver. That's where I look at it and I'm like, oh, that could actually get in the way of those bus trips that we're looking to have up there. And
It shouldn't.
It could
We've
be.
designed this system to be compliant with fire requirements, fire department requirements.
Okay.
So a full-size fire truck and therefore also a bus or even a truck, a tractor-trailer truck can fit under it. It'll have a 14-foot clear height in the drive aisle at a minimum.
Okay.
With this design, though, to your point, with this design, this high side is 20 feet on just the edge of the drive lane, so there never would be any issue with that, of course. But even this canopy height, the reason it's 20 feet on this side is because the support structures at their bottom height have to be at least 14 feet over the drive aisle. And even here in the parking spaces. So the low point here is still gonna even be 14 feet. So either option you pick should not obstruct the passage of large trucks, school buses, even like tour buses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, Ann, any questions?
I have no questions, only because when I did my tour, I was very impressed with the idea of putting it on the side where the parking was. I just thought having that canopy, like all I can think of is like an overpass that you're going under, and you'd always see that.
Yeah.
Or once you're when you come in, you're not gonna pay attention to those panels on the side like that. I mean, I know when you go to Cheshire, somebody has a house and he has a big panel in his yard. You know, when he first put it there years ago, we were like, oh my God, that's so ugly. You go now, you don't see it.
Yeah.
But I think you always would see the one that would go over the road. That's just my opinion, but when I was there, you answered a lot of my questions, so I'm, okay, thank you.
Okay, Joe?
I'd like to thank, I had a great conversation with both of you on, when I had my visit. My concern is, it was brought up about the roof. I understand now that you're saying that we can't get the capacity with the number that would be on that roof. But during this whole project, until I found out near the end, when Donna was here, that she said, well, I apologize if I not misguided you, but to let you know that there wasn't gonna be panels on the roof, because my assumption was that that was gonna be what was going to happen. And that is perfect solar. It's just, the reveal is perfect there on that, because you're gonna get the sun from morning till night. And wintertime, you'll have slide, which means the snow will always come off of those panels. And whereby the panels you'll have here, the location isn't as advantageous as if they were in the reveal. And also, those being like they are, you're gonna have snow staying on them for longer periods of time. And the way climate change is going, I don't know if we're gonna have to worry so much about snow, but I'm talking about ice buildup on them and those type of things. And also what bothers me is that this is the outdoor center. It's a beautiful building. I think you couldn't have a more beautiful building than is there. But I would have liked if it was ours with the solar, so we made the money, you know, and we could boast, well, we have solar here. But I understand what, you know, is going on, but I think that would be kind of like, quote, a feather in our cap. It still is, it's still gonna be solar, but it's not ours, in other words. And I wasn't surprised when you mentioned, and I made mention of it, when you said that there'd be sand, when you came to sand in a high water table, because of course that was a, you know, a large Bascom Lake in, you know, geological time, so when it blew out and, you know, all the remnants went down to Stockbridge at Ice Glen, then the bottom was deposited with the sands and things that go with it. And one last thing, I'm satisfied with what it is there now. I think the reveal, I like the location is nice because it does center in with the building very nicely. But, you know, I look back now and I wish we'd had some thought on geothermal usage at this facility, because the water table is increasingly high, and that pond, I believe, I mean, this is just, well, kind of talking about water over the dam, but geothermal would have been really nice at that pond there, because that's what you want for geothermal. Because in Adams, at our visitor center, we have geothermal, but the water uptake is coming from the Hoosick River, and it's moving and it's bringing up siltation, whereby a pond, that's the most likely best scenario for geothermal. But I'm satisfied with what it is, but I think it could have been better. And I want to thank both of you, because the talk was constructive and the back and forth was good. And thank you for answering me today about the other situation I brought up.
Sorry for the wrong email.
That's quite okay.
Okay. Just one or two questions. To clarify, there will be no cost to the town for the next 25 years?
Correct.
Zero cost, maintenance, anything?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, to date, the town has paid for the impact study, as I mentioned.
Right.
And the geotechnical study. And we'll still have to pay, of course, for council to review the documents. But other than that, no cost to the town.
Okay. And maybe it's a question from Mike or Jay. We did mention the building being net zero with this, with the solar panels being added. Are we going to meet that goal that was set?
Based on the current models, bearing in mind that we don't know what the impact of the EV chargers will be, but based on the current models that Andreas has worked up, yes.
Yeah, we're more than covering the energy modeling for the building itself, which, as I mentioned, was 120,000 kilowatt hours anticipated consumption. This system will produce somewhere in the range of 165, 170,000 kilowatt hours a year, which should, if not cover all of the additional consumption that you might have from the EV chargers, would cover a lot of it, I would think. I mean, it's a moving target, right? You don't know when people are gonna come and plug in, you don't know how many cars are going to come and plug in and when. But I think it's, you know, when people catch wind of the outdoor center and knowing how many people are driving EVs now, I think you're gonna have a lot of people plugging in. I'm gonna come plug in. I'm at the Glen a lot, in the winter in particular. And I have an EV, and I'll be plugging in.
So Andreas mentioned the reserve capacity if we decided to expand onto the southern-facing parts of the roof. The benefit of this design in particular is if in the future we did not meet our goals, we could also expand this way. We could add more double-sided T-canopies over the swale on the remaining part of the guardrail.
Right.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Jay, anything else?
No, thank you.
Mike, are you good?
Okay.
Anyone from the audience who would like to ask a question? Sure.
Should I come forward or?
Yeah, I probably have to use that microphone right there.
Let me just grab my glasses. So will this make the building net zero, will make zero carbon?
Yes.
It will?
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
great.
in terms of electricity consumption,
Okay.
I'm not aware, actually, of what systems are going to be in use for heating the building. I'm quite sure it's electric
Heat pump?
cooling, but is it heat pumps that are being used for the heat?
Multiple heat pumps throughout the building for cooling and
Okay, great, so then yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And what's the impact from the summit? How visible are these going to be from the summit?
I don't think any more visible than the building itself will be, but, yeah, I mean, you can see here.
But solar panels on the building wouldn't be more visible than the building?
No, I think you'll see that there are, from the mountain, you'll look down on the outdoor center and the parking area, and you'll see that it'll be quite obvious that there are solar panels covering a part of the parking area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If there is, from the the purchase,
The PPA?
The PPA plan,
Mhm.
if there's, like, I don't even know how to say it, like a balance at the end of the year, you know what I'm trying to say, right? If it's a net,
Yeah, so
if
that,
there's extra.
yeah, so with the power purchase agreement, the town is agreeing to purchase all of the power produced by the system on a monthly basis. In some months, the building might not have consumed all of the power that will have been produced. And so
That's what I'm
yeah,
asking.
in that case, the credit that's generated for the overproduction would carry forward and would remain on the outdoor center bill,
To be credited.
to be
later.
credited later, right?
So if we get to a point where
Or used later.
it keeps building, is the town able to, like, transfer it to other town-owned property?
Yep, yeah, as mentioned before, you can utilize what's called the Alternative On-Bill Credit Mechanism, or AOBCs as we call it for short. And that's the default basic service rate for your rate code at the outdoor center, which is currently the G1 rate code. That rate varies from in the winter months and the summer months. So for 6 months of winter, 6 months of summer, it changes. It's typically much higher in the summer because of the higher demand for power, and lower in the winter. In recent years, it's been as low as 12 cents a kilowatt hour in the winter and as high as 28 cents a kilowatt hour in the summer. So that credit would carry forward on the bill.
And no limitation on how long it can carry or how large it can get?
Nope, no limitation, yeah.
Good to know. Are there plans for the campground to be tied into this, or is there an option where they can have their own solar? Do you know
I
anything
don't
about that?
believe the campground is going to have any connection to the electrical service at the outdoor center. Am I wrong in that?
I believe so.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah, these solar panels won't be feeding any power to the campground, which is a completely separate legal entity and endeavor from the outdoor center. So they'll have their own electrical service, and I assume that they're gonna want to install some solar, because I know the guy that's developing that, as you may know, Daniel Deuce, he's a solar industry guy. So he'll probably want to install some solar panels associated with the campground at some point.
Okay, I think you answered all my questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming tonight and giving us this chance.
My pleasure.
All right, so all the questions and discussion have
Now, we
occurred?
have a lady over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up, I'm sorry. Please come up. I didn't see you there.
I apologize, my hearing isn't the best, and I was trying to take notes. And I think you said that it's going to cost 25 cents per kilowatt hour. And then you compared it to National Grid, and you said that they are at 13.5 cents about now. And then you said there would be a net savings. You might have added another amount.
Well, there's two separate charges associated with paying for your electricity on the outdoor center's account. On the G1 rate code, you're paying delivery charges to National Grid, and you're paying supply charges to your separate supplier, who is the Adams aggregated supplier.
It's Constellation.
So Constellation Energy is charging 13.65 cents per kilowatt hour for supply. You add to that the National Grid charges of 12.248 cents. So the total is well over 26 cents.
Okay, so there's a net savings of
Right.
about 1 cent per
Yeah.
kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And you're anticipating
that's-
148.
Sorry, and that's the savings now, but
Okay.
it's a fixed rate. And if you look at the last decade, average utility rate inflation has been 2.5% per year. So as utility rates go up and the solar rate stays the same, you save more and more money over time as the difference increases. Harvard University, who we have done 34 projects for now in the last decade, they keep bringing us back for more and more projects. They seem to believe in solar. They're having us run models, economic models, with an assumed 4% utility inflation moving forward, because they think that with all the electric vehicles that are going to be plugging in and all the deferred maintenance that's on the grid, that the utilities are going to have to start charging more and more money to accommodate the infrastructure upgrades that they're going to face. So that's what they have us doing. They're pretty smart. But we, in our models, we're running our numbers at 2.5%, because that's what you can prove over the last decade.
That's what you're anticipating
Yep.
for the town.
Yeah,
Just-
yep, yeah.
Thank you.
And with that, the total savings over 25 years would be about $300,000.
Over 25 years.
It's not a ton of savings, but it helps you at no cost to the town. It helps you achieve your goal of getting to net zero on the building
Thank you.
and get covered parking.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I had one question that I forgot to ask. You mentioned about the credits you'll get when you get it from state and federal. You'll be getting from both of them, right? Can you tell me what you envision as capital for that from them, excuse me?
Well, we get a 30% federal tax credit on the total cost of the system, design, construction, all of the costs associated with putting the system in. So essentially, we get 30% back as a tax credit against our tax liability. We get accelerated depreciation on the system, which might cover another 25% of the total system cost, something like that. And then the state incentive is paid by the kilowatt hour. It's called the SMART program, the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program. And the incentive we have approved for this system gives us back about 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So for every kilowatt hour we produce, we get 10 cents back. Plus you pay us 25 cents. So this gives us a modest rate of return on investing in this project. Power Options has oversight on the project, and we have, per our agreement with them as the winner of the RFP for their members, we have an open book scenario with them. So we show them our books on the project, and they say, okay, that's the project cost. We see all those costs for building the project, engineering, so forth. Here's the incentives you get. You're going to get a rate of return of X. Okay, you're allowed to get that much. Because every project's different, we can't say we can offer a PPA rate that's the same to everybody for every project. Because every project gets a different incentive, every project gets, has different construction costs, depending on whether it's a roof, how big it is it a carport, is it a ground mount, so forth. So our agreement with Power Options is such that they look at our books and they allow us to make a certain amount of money, and it's not a lot compared to the typical project. I mean, it's a sweetheart deal. It's how we won the RFP, you know. We won the RFP because we offered great pricing, but we also have a great track record in the industry in Massachusetts, and we're a Massachusetts-based company, so.
Yeah, because when you brought up Harvard, I'm saying, well, you're very successful. So you're doing this for us for nothing, but you must be making a profit somehow to keep that going for business and business and business.
We do. We do all types of solar projects. For those who have the capital to purchase a project, we'll sell them a project. And then we make a chunk of money when we finish the project, and we use that money and reinvest it in doing projects like this, where we have to pay for all the construction, instead of having someone pay us for the construction, and getting paid at the end of the job, and having a margin that we make on the construction. We have to wait for our returns when we own a project like this. And so we take that money that we make, and about half the projects we do, we get paid for. It's a purchase. And the other half of the projects, we invest that money in doing projects like this. So we have kind of an annuity, a long-term payout, that gives us stable returns. It's especially good for us, frankly, to be working with municipalities and universities, state entities, because they're very good credit risks. We don't have to worry about most towns going out of business. We know you'll always pay the bill, right? And so it's very stable and good investment for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Sure.
Back when we had a meeting to authorize paying for the geotechnical survey, we were told that had we been in a position to have a signed agreement with you, that would be no charge. But because we hadn't gone to town meeting yet to get permission for that, we had to pay, so it ended up being $18,000, right? So I know you weren't here, but I think it was Jay that said, even though we had to pay it, we would get it back with credits. So is there a way that, now that we've signed the contract and we paid in good faith up front for the study, is there a way that you plan to reimburse the town for that? Because you would have done it for free if we had had a signed contract?
No, well, I mean, nothing's for free in this world, right? That cost would have been built into our total PPA rate. So if we had added $18,000 to our project cost, the PPA rate would go up. So essentially, what the town gets in return for paying for the geotech and the impact study with the utility is a lower PPA rate, which saves you more money over time. So as Jay mentioned, you're getting that money back as a lower cost on the PPA rate. So
But it doesn't seem like a cost, because a savings, because we're only saving 1 penny over what we're paying currently. So if we had had to pay more, we would have been agreeing to pay more in order to have solar.
That's right.
So that doesn't really seem like
Well,
a lot of incentive.
put it this way, I guess, you in a way, you bought down your PPA rate. So you by paying for those two items out of pocket, we didn't have to pay for them, so we didn't have to make the money back on the PPA rate. So instead of 25.5 cents or 26 cents PPA rate, where you would have been breaking even, you're now getting a 25-cent PPA rate, and you're saving a penny rather than just breaking even, for instance. I mean, those aren't the exact numbers, but that's an example. So the $40,000 or so that the town put in allows the PPA rate to be lower. And at the beginning, when we first started down this road, I advised Jay and Donna that this is going to be an expensive project, the way that the architect wanted it built. It didn't really take into account what the cost would really be and how viable economically his ideas would be. So we went to work in finding ways that would make it viable. And I think we've arrived at that. From the beginning, one of the options was having the town get money donated to pay down or buy down the PPA rate, so it would be a lower PPA rate. And sources like Williams College were discussed. But that didn't come to fruition. Luckily, the town had some money available to pay for the geotech and the impact study, so that.
How much was the impact study?
I think it was it 11,000? I'm forgetting, I don't have it in front of me, but it was either 11 or 22. I think the total was about $40,000 that the town put in. Do you remember?
65,000 they put in.
Right, we've been told 65, so when you say 40, I want to know where that 40
The
came from.
impact study was not, so the geotech was 18,000, but the impact study was not 47 or whatever, it would add it up to 65. We haven't been paid any money by the town. The town has just reimbursed us for paying for the geotech.
Okay, I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat. Thank you again for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. I think it works out in the end.
Yeah, I think we were kind of speculating there for a while, so we just don't have the numbers with us, so. All right. So we're good. All right, what is the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed location and design for what we've been calling Design 1, which, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a single T-frame canopy solar carport. Do I have the language correct?
Yeah.
I matched up Design 1 and the description. Okay. For the Greylock Glen Outdoor Center at 135 Gold Road in Adams.
Motion by Christine, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ann, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, non-unanimous, thank you both.
Thank you.
Even has the next items for you.
Okay.
Thank Andreas.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item. It is the review of the updated hazard mitigation plan. Eamon?
It's strange to sit here.
Yeah.
So over the past year or so, the Community Development Department has been working with Jamie Kaplan Associates, who are based in the Commander Valley, to update our 2019 hazard mitigation plan, FEMA hazard mitigation plan. The plan is now complete, and what I'm hoping to do tonight is review the plan with the board, and FEMA has asked us to adopt a resolution that would approve the plan and finalize it. The FEMA hazard mitigation plan is required for us to apply for any hazard mitigation grants and a number of other FEMA grant programs. As a reminder, we are using this same program, hazard mitigation program, to pay for our Jordan Street culvert replacement project, so we're already utilizing some of those funds. So, as part of this plan update, a lot of it's very focused on potential improvements that needed for our infrastructure, particularly our drainage system, stormwater system in town. I think, it's no secret that climate change, which is an even bigger focus of this plan than it was in 2019, climate change is going to continue to stress our drainage system and our stormwater system. So the plan includes a number of different infrastructure improvements that we need to make over the next few years to continue to respond to those hazards and to increase public safety and reduce our community's risk. Additionally, our bigger focus of this plan update is different organizational changes that, for instance, the police department or our forest wardens can make to help them better respond to hazards and to dangers and increase public safety, as well as planning changes, plans and updates that are needed, including a recommended climate change adaptation plan for the town. So I think, we've put together a good, complete list of goals, which I shared with the board. And the final steps would be for the board to adopt a resolution, the language of which was circulated earlier. And then also too, I'll just remind the board of the great progress that has been made since 2019 in addressing some of these infrastructural problem areas as they're called out in the plan. When I was first brought on board, back in 2021, the Grant Street Drainage Project, which helped address a number of flooding homes in the Grant Street neighborhood, was just wrapping up. That helps address a major problem area in the community. Our DPW has also worked over the last few years to address drainage on Lower Linden Street, as well as replace a culvert on Power Street. And we've continued to slowly advance the Jordan Street culvert replacement project, which was just recently approved last week by the Conservation Commission and can now finally move closer and closer to construction. So a lot of progress has been made, but there's still considerable work that remains. Are there any questions?
I have a question. I read this and see things you're doing like on Jordan Street, and you're talking about the brook. Does this mitigation plan have anything to do with the flood control chutes?
There are some general items that we need to study and kind of look at those more closely. But my understanding is, for the most part, the larger flood chutes are in fairly good condition. It's the smaller conveyances of the streams and brooks that flow into the larger system that are now starting to deteriorate.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is because when I walk on the trail, especially down from Lime Street to Hoosick Street, and you look at the flood control, the silt and everything else that has accumulated in there is raising the water level. So if we get any kind of significant flooding, it could, the way it's growing, impact the people around that flood control area. And years ago, I know when we had more staff on the town, that every summer they would go in there and clean it up as part of their job. And I know with what we have, and I applaud our workers tremendously, but I just see that is something I think has got to be really looked at because of how the level of the bottom is just increasing. That's all I have to say.
I understand, I agree.
Thank you.
Other questions, Joe?
Yeah. This is the first time I've seen this. And, this is constantly happening. I come to a meeting, something of this importance, it's thrown on my desk, and I don't have time to look at it, and it's continually bothering me, because something of this importance, I should have at least a week to look at it and prioritize it, look at it and think what I think's important, and I'd like to know how this was put together. Now, you said we hired someone, and who sat down and did the ranking, and who put the numbers there? Was there just yourself and the engineer that we hired, or whoever we hired? These rankings, I'm just kind of wondering how did that play out to get to this point? How were the rankings made, and how were the actions numbered?
Well, we worked with a small steering committee.
Who was on that steering committee?
Jerry Garner was on the committee, Tim Coda. We also had Council on Aging and housing authority involved, police department. Most of our emergency responders were consulted in some way, whether or not they attended meetings. So we had a small steering committee that worked on things, and then myself and Kevin Rayner, who's no longer with the Community Development Department, went through and ranked the projects. But the ranking doesn't affect our grant eligibility. It's merely a way to prioritize things.
Christine, go ahead.
No, I was just, I thought this was part of the materials that were emailed to us last Tuesday and were put in our mailbox last week. So we did have over a week to look at the items. I just wanted to make mention of that and to correct what had been stated.
I'd like to respond if I could, Mr. Chair. I just got the email that the hard copy was ready just a day ago, or 2 days ago.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Last Tuesday, you received an email from me that had the full hazard mitigation plan. These documents were included in that, and that was not yesterday, but a week ago yesterday.
Was it in hard copy form?
No, as I stated in my email, the document was incredibly lengthy and it would not be available in hard copy, but the resolution was
So how
available.
could I have saw it if it wasn't available on, because it was so long, and I got the email, I looked at it, but what could I look at?
There was an attachment. You could
Okay.
read it online.
Okay, so a lot of plans that we put together, there's always a list of actions, right? So what is your proposed way of monitoring, assigning who's responsible and monitoring these actions you've identified? And these plans, when you get these approved by the state, they come with no additional funding. They may help you in getting grants going down the
Yeah,
road.
right, they help us to get grants. but
Right,
there's no-
so we use existing funding to work these plans. So how do you plan on monitoring the actions and updating the board on the progress of the actions?
In the plan itself, there is a table that includes, who would be responsible for implementing each one of the actions. Obviously, community development has a big role in that. And we can continue to provide an update on the plan invitation yearly. I think you're all aware of some of the projects that we're working on that address some of these issues. Jordan Street being the biggest one, Peck's Brook being another one. I can continue to update the board on those projects as they progress.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else? Any questions? All right, yeah, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, come forward.
Does
If you don't mind, a little close so they can hear at home, thank you.
this hazard mitigation plan replace the storm management plan, or are they completely different documents?
The stormwater management plan?
Yeah,
It doesn't replace the stormwater management plan.
they're separate
They're
documents.
separate documents.
Okay, where can we find the minutes for the steering committee?
I believe it was an ad hoc committee, so there were no minutes taken.
Okay, thanks.
And sorry, just to clarify, the email about hard packets was sent on Monday, not yesterday as well.
Okay, so we need to approve the hazard mitigation plan. Do we need to read that statement, could you do that?
Yeah, FEMA's asked us to adopt this resolution, which would finalize and approve the plan.
So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt I will make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the Town of Adams Hazard Mitigation Plan update and have the resolution read into record. It'll be resolution number 24-01 Whereas the town of Adams recognizes the threat that natural hazards pose to people and property within the town of Adams, and whereas the town of Adams has prepared a multi-hazard mitigation plan, hereby known as Town of Adams, Massachusetts Hazard Mitigation Plan Update, in accordance with federal laws, including the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act as amended, the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968 as amended, and the National Dam Safety Program Act as amended. And whereas the Town of Adams, Massachusetts Hazard Mitigation Plan Update identifies mitigation goals and actions to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property in the Town of Adams from the impacts of future hazards and disasters, and whereas adoption by the Town of Adams Select Board demonstrates its commitment to hazard mitigation and achieving the goals outlined in the Town of Adams, Massachusetts Hazard Mitigation Plan Update. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town of Adams that Section 1, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, the Town of Adams Select Board adopts the Town of Adams, Massachusetts Hazard Mitigation Plan Update. While content related to the Town of Adams may require revisions to meet the plan approval requirements, changes occurring after adoption will not require Town of Adams to re-adopt any further iterations of the plan. Subsequent plan updates following the approval period for this plan will require separate adoption resolutions.
We have a motion by Christine. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ann. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? And one no. So we have 3 in favor, 1 against. Thank you. Moving on to item E, licensing. We have several licenses to approve this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from items 1 and 2 as I was not able to file disclosures in a timely manner.
Okay. All right, so for the first one, the one-day liquor license application for the Berkshire Cider Project to serve at the Adams Theater. What is the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to accept the one-day liquor license application for the Berkshire Cider Project to serve at the Adams Theater, 27 Park Street, Adams, Mass. on Sunday, September 29th, 2024, from 5:30 PM to 9 PM.
Motion by Ann, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Joe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous. The second item is a one-day liquor license application for the Bounty Fair to serve at the Adams Visitors Center. What is the board's pleasure?
I will make a motion to accept the one-day liquor license application for the Bounty Fair to serve at the Adams Visitor Center, 3 Hoosick Street, Adams, Mass. on Sunday, October 13th, 2024, from 12 PM to 5 PM.
Motion by Ann, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Joe. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous. The next item is a one-day liquor license application for the Firehouse Cafe to serve the Adams Theater. It is the board's pleasure.
May I make a motion that can we accept all of the applications under the dates to save?
They're all Firehouse that are left, sure.
All right, look, I'm going to make a motion to accept the applications for one-day liquor licenses for the Firehouse Cafe to serve at the Adams Theater, 27 Park Street, Adams, Mass. on Saturday, September 21st, Friday, September 27th, Saturday, September 28th, Saturday, October 5th, Friday, October 11th, Saturday, October 12th, Sunday, October 13th, and Saturday, October 26th. And they would all be from 5 to 9 PM.
Good. So we have a motion from Ann. Do we have a second?
I'll
I'll sec-
second. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, that's right.
Second by Christine. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to say one thing. You look down this list, Adams Theater, Adams Theater, Adams Theater. I'm so thankful that we have somebody that came to this town and put a little pop into it, so kudos once again to Ina Moore for what she's accomplishing in this town.
Thank you. Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous decision. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Christine, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ann, any discussion? Hearing none, all
I
those in...
just had one question now. Is this a given for the beautification committee? That's been given the okay to continue?
The board hasn't acted on this. Do we plan to have this as an agenda item, or? It's
If it's
just,
an agenda item, it will delay them to do it.
okay, so you're going to make,
My communication to the board was,
I
if,
saw your communication, Jay, I did see it.
do you take objection to it?
Not objection, but
it's not on the agenda, so we really can't
It's-
talk
it's
about
not.
that. But you're going to make the decision on this.
I wanted feedback from the board before I tell
Yeah.
them yes or no.
yeah.
If anyone feels strongly they don't like it, they don't like whatever,
They can contact.
then tell me that
No, I didn't.
individually.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just say that I look at things different. I like solid colors. When you look back and you look at the mill and things, and I'll give this
really
committee,
can't-
the Adams Beautification Committee,
Joe,
reference to do, yes, excuse me.
No, it's okay, we just really can't talk about it, it's not on the agenda,
Oh,
but...
okay, well, I thought Jay wanted to just
Yeah,
ask me.
It's okay, if you guys can talk with each other, so we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous.